What's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite for another episode of Community Quotes. This is a series where we take some of the wildest statements from the community and we dissect them in a commentary. Whether I agree with the statement or not, tonight we're going to be focusing on Black Ops 7 potentially releasing a week or two early. Definitely stay tuned. Now, I do want to start by saying, when it comes to the release of BO7, which is currently November the 14th, I feel like that date is going to stick. There's quite a bit to unpack with this topic alone, so feel free to refer to timestamps down below. Typically, what we've seen in recent years is the Call of Duties that maybe got the least amount of dev time usually end up releasing later in the year, maybe early to mid-November, but with the games that got the most development time, they typically have come out in, I want to say, mid to late October, which is something that I'd probably prefer, especially for a game like Black Ops 7, considering when it comes to Season 6 of BO6, the content they have on deck for the final season is pretty much already released, and they actually got stuff out the way a little bit earlier than we expected. We'll get back to that. But this rumor actually started a couple of weeks ago where some of the usual data miners and insiders in the COD community did suggest that we were going to be seeing an earlier launch for BO7, that the release would be moved up for more reasons than another. And we'll talk about what some of those reasons could be. But then earlier today, the Ghost of Hope did put out this tweet which says, and I quote, "Seems like there's some evidence of a potential release date change for BO7 where it could move up a week. Not sure I buy it yet, but would be a pleasant surprise if it happens." I also saw a tweet floating around about the Steam Depot for Black Ops 7 and how when it comes to previous Call of Duties, these depots were added, I want to say 2 weeks before the release of MW3, 4 weeks before the release of BO6. So with that in mind, that could really just mean anything because this could just be them prepping a November the 14th release. However, if any other evidence does pop up about the Steam Depot or any other platforms that could be confirming an earlier release date, I'll be sure to update you in a separate video. So I'm not exactly sure what evidence Hope is referring to or what the evidence was when some other leakers did talk about this a couple of weeks back. Insider Gaming also published an article about a potential early release for BO7 just earlier this afternoon. I mean, if this doesn't end up happening, I'm sure Activision or Microsoft are kind of behind the scenes watching this and laughing right now. But since we don't really know where this is coming from, I guess it's fair to break down what evidence we do actually have which could support this idea. So a big one that will probably come to mind, especially in the comments down below, is that this could be an effort to really compete against Battlefield. Now, as I've said many times before publicly and on the podcast, Battlefield 6 is going to be successful. It'll probably go down as one of the most successful, if not the best Battlefield that has probably ever come out as far as sales, player numbers, and it'll only get better as they end up updating that game with seasonal content. The Battle Royale may also come out by the end of this month. But real quick, I do want to show you guys something which could actually put to rest the whole COD is dead Steam argument. And if you're somebody that already doesn't like Call of Duty, you're probably not going to agree with what I have to say, but taking a look at the data alone, right? Battlefield 6 came out on the 10th, and the chart right here is up until October 11th. Clearly, that only reflects one day of Battlefield 6 being live, but even with that day, which we all know was huge, the player queue was insane, especially on Steam. The game itself sat at around number 12 on PS5 and number 8 on Xbox 24 hours after its launch. Could it have gotten better, and could the numbers be a lot stronger, let's say a day or two after that, as people kind of settled in, played over the weekend? Absolutely. But will it have toppled COD once the other charts do pop up? Absolutely not, especially for console. The game was number 1 on Steam, however, which again reaffirms the idea that Call of Duty just isn't popular on Steam and just hasn't been for so many years. I can make a whole video talking about this, so I'm going to get off this topic now, but Call of Duty got off Steam in 2018 with BO4, came back to it with Modern Warfare 2, but everybody knows the game just runs so much better on Battle.net or Game Pass if you're on a PC. Some folks will say that's cope, but with that in mind, I don't think the competition is as real as people really think that it is. If Battlefield is the reason that Call of Duty made good changes like reduced SBMM, persistent lobbies, and every other thing that we're looking for, then so be it. We got to thank Battlefield for it. But will we ever know why some decisions were made? Absolutely not. And as I've said many times before, Call of Duty is kind of that low-hanging fruit, the rage baiting, the grifting, all of that's gonna continue even after the player count reveal that we saw earlier today. People are still gonna talk their crap, but it's kind of like a measuring dicks competition where people that don't have any stake in either of these companies seem to care so much about the player counts when in reality it's just coming down to which game you enjoy the most. Who cares what one platform's player counts look like when we don't have any of the numbers from any other platform? The closest we have to that are these console charts, which Sony and Xbox tend to post every month, which do give us an indicator of how good a game is doing. So if they release Black Ops 7 early, could it be to compete against Battlefield because that game is doing well? I mean, sure. I actually think, if anything, if you want to relate this to Battlefield, it could be, because the Battle Royale for that game is allegedly dropping on October 28th at the very end of this month. That could be why they're like, hey, if we get BO7 out the door a little bit earlier, that means Season 1 will come out sooner, and Season 1's Warzone update will technically actually compete against Battlefield's Battle Royale, even though I don't believe Verdansk POI updates or a new Resurgence map are really going to fairly compete against a big, new, fresh Battlefield Battle Royale. Still, that could be a strategy here if they are going to release the game early. But something that I think is really worth diving into that probably supports this idea the most is that when it comes to The Haunting and Season 6 of Black Ops 6, by this Thursday, just about every single thing that was promised for this content drop will have been released. Every challenge event, every reward. I believe there's one more zombie leaderboard event that will probably end up dropping by the end of October, but excluding that, the Tapes of Terror event is this Thursday. They released the Chucky event pass almost a week before it was supposed to. It released this past Saturday when it was initially scheduled for October 23rd. So they've gotten everything out the way for Black Ops 6. Could that be paving the way for either more marketing for BO7, which I'm totally open to because we actually need a lot more marketing since there's quite a few unanswered questions, or is that actually setting up Black Ops 7 to release a bit earlier since it won't be interfering with anything that was left for the big Halloween crossover? Now, I feel like because everything is essentially already out for Black Ops 6 Season 6, at this point, it's like if you're not going to market a lot more BO7 until November the 14th, then you may as well release the game a bit early if it's ready to go. I don't want this to be a Black Ops 4 scenario where the game just didn't need to come out any earlier than it did because it needed more testing, needed some more QA support. I don't want to see the game come out early if it's not ready to actually release. But there's also folks suggesting online that maybe these early rumors are actually stemming from what could be early access to the campaign, which may have already been data mined or leaked somewhere. Now, while I do think early access to the campaign is a cool idea for Call of Duty, I feel like it won't happen this year for a number of reasons. I mean, it didn't happen for Black Ops 6, which I think would have been great, and that was a standard single-player campaign where progression didn't transfer from the campaign itself to MP or to zombies. And on top of that, Modern Warfare 3 got review bombed to hell during its early access window, which probably actually stained a bit of that launch, even though the post-launch support for that game ended up turning things around. They're probably not going to want to have folks be like, hey, I managed to get, Prestige 1 or 2 by grinding campaign and endgame a week before the rest of the game comes out, which will have multiplayer and the zombies. I doubt they're going to want to have us do that, although I'm open to it considering my anticipation for the endgame 32-player open world experience that you get after you beat the campaign, which I'm sure a lot less folks are going to be able to jump into at launch because they'll be busy with their usual multiplayer and zombies grind. Now, there is an issue with dropping Black Ops 7 even just a week early, because unless they keep the Season 1 release date as, let's say, December the 5th, which right now is a pure guesstimate based on how soon Season 1 released last year for Black Ops 6, and for Call of Duty games prior, if they release BO7 early, then unless Season 1 doesn't come out any earlier, that kind of puts it on around Thanksgiving week, which I don't think they're going to do unless they release the update in like perfect condition with no bug fixes needed. Then they go on their Thanksgiving break. That's kind of risky to do unless they want to go ahead and say, hey, let's go ahead and still drop Season 1 on December the 5th, but we'll do marketing for that season right before devs leave for their Thanksgiving break. But yeah, you got to remember they usually market brand new seasons about 7 days before the content is meant to drop, so that's kind of in some sticky territory with the holiday at the end of November, but I'm sure they'll have this worked out, and if it is like Black Ops 6, then you probably still could expect Season 1 3 weeks after the initial game comes out. But to really put a pin in this, I'm still on the fence about the whole topic. I know a lot of folks are talking about it. I'm leaning more towards the side of they're likely not going to release the game early. I mean, maybe 2-3 weeks would make a difference, but that's like any day now, right? If they wanted to do it, how would they even go about announcing this, right? What would be the reason for releasing the game early? If they're confident, if the game's in a really good state, then sure, do it. We'll be done with Black Ops 6 probably after this Thursday when the last event comes out, so I'm ready for new content to cover. But they've never done this before. I believe anytime a Call of Duty date has been announced, they've usually stuck to it. Obviously, we've seen live seasons get pushed back. There's been delays. There's been different issues here and there. But when it comes to a full game release, this might end up being a big first for the entire franchise. And Season 1 has been said to be the biggest content drop for Call of Duty ever. They have to get this right. Launch impressions are important. You'd hope for the best stability day one, which Black Ops 6 did have, and that already was significantly better than the launches of BO4 and even Cold War. But that is about it. This has been DK Dynamite. Leave our thoughts down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts on this community quote that Black Ops 7 is going to end up releasing early? Do you believe there's some evidence behind the scenes that we just don't know about yet, that some of the usual insiders or leakers do actually know? Leave our thoughts down below. Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everybody.